name's David. I am a kidney specialist at one of the hospitals in Surrey, and fairly busy job, but extremely rewarding. I also go to church at Hawley Baptist Church. We've been there for about 5 years now, going on 6, and I still feel like I'm a new kid on the block, but it's a very, very warm place to be in. I'm fairly active with things in the church, and at the moment I'm one of the elders. It's been a good 5 years, but as everyone would tell you, this year has been very different. COVID was challenging. First of all, at work, we didn't know what to expect. You heard news from China, seemed very, very far away. Then you heard news from Italy, and that wasn't so far away. And then it was here. And I still remember the first UK case, and it was almost, wow, this is here. And then not too long after that, there was the first hospital case, and it was still this. And then all of a sudden it exploded. And just around the start of when we were seeing very many cases, so this is about the beginning, middle of March, I was due to start a 2-week stint on call and went there for the first day, did my ward round, and then suddenly felt a bit unwell, a bit of a fever. I thought, okay. 2 hours later, I really wasn't feeling well, and snuck behind somewhere in the hospital, got my temperature, and it was about 37.9. Okay. And then I'm now stuck between, do I just soldier on, or am I actually a risk to the people I'm looking after? Told my colleague, I said, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm going to need to leave. And left, came home, felt really rough. And then the next day went and had the test done. And I know people kind of moan at the moment that it's more than 24 hours to get the results. I didn't know for 5 days then. But it was bad. And the one thing I will agree with most people about is it drains you. I thought I was ready to go back, and I'm just so grateful for my work colleagues who said, take your time. And I slowly built it, but I was finding 4 hours, 6 hours later, I was really tired. Managed to ease myself back into it, and I'd like to say I'm back to normal, but sometimes you have to ask, was I ever normal? But the peak would have been April, definitely rising towards the end of March and beginning to wane towards the end of May. I went back to work around the middle of April, and it was just all hands on deck, looking after people in the hospital. I was able, being a kidney specialist unit, we couldn't not carry on treating the patients who were coming up 3 times a week for dialysis, but significant strain on everybody dealing with this thing you'd never dealt with before. And for most people, it was just the fact, it seemed, that when it affected people badly, it didn't take any prisoners. At least for me, one of the challenges I had before COVID was spending next to no time at home. So I think for my wife, Carol, she got to see much more of me. Whether that was a blessing or a curse, I have no idea. But she also was really ill at some point with it and didn't have a swab, but she must have contracted it. And so just before COVID, things had been pretty busy at work, and it's like you're on this hamster going around this wheel, and I looked at times and thought, I don't think I can sustain this space, but I don't know how to get off. And then COVID happened, and I still remember sending a text message to some of my colleagues saying, they were asking how I was, having contracted, and I said, the bit that shocks me is how the world is still managing to spin on its axis without me at its helm. And it was 3 weeks away from work, and they coped. And it brought it home to me that some of these things don't just happen off their own. You have to make a decision to take this work-life balance thing a bit more seriously. It's a good question. I don't think I've got a trite answer. I can tell you though, when they say things like there are no atheists on a sinking ship, you may not be able to have a physical manifestation, but there was no question. I didn't feel he was distant. There was part of me that felt, and going through being ill, recovering, it wasn't so much what I was going through, it was in my mind, God, what are you wanting me to learn from this? And one of my keenest desires is, as I go through recovering from COVID, getting back to work, going back to what in quote would be normal, that I don't miss out on learning what I should have during this period. I'd extend that to not just me, but the people around me, the country. I think for some people there was a sense before COVID, the direction we were going was a little unsettling. We seemed to know it all, have all the answers. Just going back to how the country was before COVID, it was Brexit, and it was tearing the nation apart. All of a sudden, it's as if time out's been called. Now, tragic COVID, but time out's been called, and people hopefully will be able to look back at what actually matters. Having your family split up because of Brexit might have seemed, justifiable then. It doesn't now. Not being able to see dear and loved ones has been brought home, and not being able to just put your arm around someone and give them a hug. Who would ever have thought? So I think for quite a few people, it's brought home the things that should matter. I would argue the things that do matter. One of my colleagues at work was saying the thing is we've got short memories. And there is every chance when all this settles, people will forget and will go again to arguing about whether it should be blue or light blue. But yeah, it's been a testing time. I think with regards to my faith, there's a chap called Ravi Zacharias who died earlier on this year. I've listened to during this period and been really blessed by. But there is one thing he says. He says people sometimes ask him whether he has doubts at all. And he says he's never had a doubt, but he's had questions. And he says there is a difference. He's never doubted that God was there for him. Never. There's too much that's happened in his life for him not to realize that in anyone's life. But he does have questions, and I've come to understand that that is me as well. I can't tell you that I've struggled significantly with not going to church. Because it was the normal thing I did, not having that normal thing is a bit awkward. And that's the way I'd put it. But it's also made me realize that, especially when you have a role in church, or I used to stack the chairs, that was, I decided who sat and who didn't. That's just a great, great power position. But seriously, it made me realize that there are times we go and do church. You've been there, you've done what you do, you go back home. And much as you try not to say so, that's what you've done. You've got good at doing church. Not having it now, you then have to ask the question, if God was there and God is still here, what is it you're missing? Because it shouldn't be him. You might miss the fellowship of other people. But if what you're missing out on now is God, can you truly justify that? That's what you had there. I miss the people, I miss the interactions. But I actually think it's made me want to actually, again, question God and say, did I have it right then? Because you're still there. And I think, for me at least, it's become a slightly more real relationship. I've been forced to challenge so now that I don't go to church on a Sunday, what is that relationship? And in the Bible it talks about praying at all times. And if you take prayer as going and begging for things, and you might miss it, it's actually more, I think, having a relationship with someone and actually talking to them all through. And I'm learning to do that, and I'm hoping from now going forward he will be real to me, and I think that matters. We've never had the virus before, and I know at the first lockdown I kept on telling myself and trying to tell others as well, When we start looking back and judging what was done, please be kind, not just to yourself, but to everyone. There was nothing they could compare with. There are going to be mistakes made, which if they had the chance to do it over, will probably just be a different kind of mistake. We're learning the virus. Be kind. And sometimes that can be very difficult to do. And those are trite words. You need to really take a decision to be kind. Just before this second lockdown, I was on the wards and had exposure to somebody who had the virus, so they thought I might have contracted it and therefore wanted me to isolate for 2 weeks. So I was sent packing, came home and worked from home for 2 weeks. It really upset me. I was not happy at all. I felt I was well. I didn't think I'd contracted it before. No, I didn't this time. There was a question as to whether I was immune. And I just really felt what I was doing was going ahead with a diktat, which is a very blunt tool when I could be there at work doing things. I remember coming home and trying to do the clinics from home, ringing people. I was not good at it at the start, and I blamed everything but myself. But the more testing thing was, did I want to go around and walk around the block? I didn't think I was putting anyone at risk, but I knew I would be going against the guidance, the rules. And no matter how I looked at it, the only person who might have known would have been my wife, Carol, but that still wouldn't have been a good witness going against the guidance. In the Bible, it's quite clear you're not expected to flout authority just for the sake of it. So I stayed in, didn't go out at all apart from into the garden at the back, and it made me realize for the first time, if I was a self-employed plumber, no other source of income, and 3 jobs on the go, and somebody said, you were out at the restaurant and you may have been in contact, please stay at home for 2 weeks, and I felt well, it would be more than a temptation to go out and do those jobs. I would justify I wasn't putting anyone at risk. I need the money. And it made me realize for the first time, this is real for people. This is not just a question of me frowning at the fact I can't do a telephone consultation. It's real for certain people, and it was just around the time they were saying that they might pass your details on to the police if you don't self-isolate. For some people, it's a matter of life or death is almost exaggerating, but it's a big deal for people. So when you think about that, going into another 4-week lockdown, I look at it as, well, it's just 4 weeks. For some people, that might be the end of their business. I didn't understand that until I had to self-isolate for 2 weeks. Factor that with someone who can't see their mum in a nursing home and their thinking time is short. So I go back and I would ask, please, be kind in your judgments, because although it may not seem like it, there will be politicians who carry this with them, this decision they've had to make. There are going to be some people who will write to those politicians and won't pull their punches, and you will wake up every day to this. So much as they might seem aloof on telly, you have to go back to the Bible, and when it says pray for your leaders, well, if you want them to make good decisions, you better go and do your knee mail, as it were. So one other thing that has really taxed me during this is the things we've put in place because of COVID. A lot of them don't make sense. And it's very difficult when you're looking at something that just doesn't make sense to then comply with it. But it just made me think about the children of Israel when they went into exile. They've been taken into a foreign land, and you can imagine them just wanting to go back home, wanting it to be normal. When is normal going to happen? And I can understand them, the good old Boney M song, By the Rivers of Babylon, where we sat down, them yearning to go back. And they would look at God, I'm sure, and think, where are you, and when are we going to go back home? And the prophet Daniel says that he read the letter from Jeremiah, which said, you're going to be in that land for 70 years. That's not what they wanted to hear. he said, just settle down, guys, this is going to be a while. It is not what they wanted to hear at all. So I look back at what we're going through, and the coronavirus is here to stay. We are looking and trying to make sure this is not going to be 70 years of it. No, nothing that dramatic. But I just go back to how they must have felt when they heard this ain't going to change quickly. And for us, getting used to wearing masks, getting used to a significant amount of the things we're doing, doesn't sit well with us. I am hoping it'll be very short. But sometimes, even with our prayers, God might say, there's stuff I need you to learn, and I'm not going to live this until you've learnt it. Can you be comfortable with that? I was talking to my wife Carol yesterday, and I forget what the question I posed was. I think it was, I'm going to be doing this interview tomorrow. What would you say if it were you? And she said, don't lose hope. I think I'd say the same. Don't lose hope.